Howdy folks, happy days. Nikon has just released a new firmware version 4.1 for the Nikon Z9. If you're not already a member of my expert setup guide, you can check it out below and stay up to date with all these updates. This new firmware is one of many over the last 2.5 years or so since the Z9 has come out, and I think it signals two really important things for Nikon users. I'm going to show you what the new features are, how to do the setup, what those two things are, and how I think this impacts the release of my link. Now, firmware 4.1. Essentially, all this is adding, it's not all, but it's significant, but it's just two simple things, no little bug fixes or anything. It's adding two new subject detect modes for your autofocus in stills and in video. And is it a bird? Is it a plane? Actually, it's both. It's adding birds and planes to the autofocus options along with animals and vehicles and people and all of that kind of good thing.
Look, up in the sky, it's a bird!
It's a plane!
It's Superman! Yes, it's Superman!
Now, the two things that I think this clearly signals are, one, Nikon is serious about giving updates to their cameras. It's great to see they've built both of these machines with headroom that have the capability, and if you look at what the Z9 was when it came out, I think it was fantastic value for $5,500 then. Now, with all of the upgrades that they've added, it's like a Z9 Mark II by now, given all of their new features that have been added. And I think despite now being a couple of years old, I think it's even better value than when it was released. So that's really great to see. Other manufacturers also do that. They, like Fujifilm, like to give updates to cameras, but considering it's still king of the hill, still flagship, I'm really happy to see that they're still making use of the processing power that this has. The second thing that I think it kind of signals, and this is really important for people who are tossing up, should I buy a Z8, should I buy a Z9? Actually had an email today from a good friend of mine, Kathy, who's a bird photographer, has the Z9, is considering the Z8 for the smaller form factor. I think they're very clearly now segmenting this so that the Z9 is for sports and birds and wildlife and all of that fast stuff. And despite the Z8 having the same sensor, the same processor, the same frames per second and all of that good stuff, they're clearly positioning this towards portraiture. Now, why would I say that? The Z8 has skin softening and all of these kind of features dedicated to portraiture that haven't come to the Z9. And the Z9 is getting the bird autofocus, which the Z8 is not, at least at this stage. And I kind of get it, because whilst I say they have the same internals, it is limited to the processor, the sensor and all of that kind of thing. The fact that the Z9 has dual CF Express Type B cards, whereas the Z8's using an SD card. This has bigger battery, this has no overheating problems. The Z8 still does have overheating problems. GPS, no GPS. There are more reasons to consider a Z9, or things that you need to consider when stepping down to the Z8, than just saving on the size and weight. Anyway, let's now jump in and show you how to do that firmware update. So, to do the update, you're going to head over to the Nikon webpage. I'll put a link below, download the software, check that you're updating to the latest version. Then copy the bin file onto your card directly into the root, put it into your camera, go down to the setup menu, go to the bottom item, check your firmware version, and you can update it there. Now, you'll note this is before. Here's the different subject detection options that we had. Once it's finished running through and doing the update, it did take a couple of minutes. Hey presto, is it a bird? Is it a plane? Yes, it's both. So check out my expert setup guide, folks. It takes you through the Z9, the Z8, the ZF, and every other camera in the range. Shows you how to set them up out of the box, how to configure them to get the best results for your style of shooting, and a complete menu deep dive showing you everything that these different cameras are capable of.